14 years ago, I came to the US broke with lots of dreams, hopes, aspirations, and just by faith, hoping that everything will work itself out. It was a struggle, and I'm making this video just to share my experience, hoping that it helps someone not to make the same mistakes I made. If this video will help you, please keep watching. Thank you. So yeah, welcome back to Life as a Seed podcast. On today's episode, I wanted to go a bit personal. I wanted to share my own personal story, as an immigrant here in the US. And so a backstory about myself. I came here in 2011. I came for graduate school. I came with no money. I'm not one of those people that would say they came with $5 or $10 and their suitcase. No, I came with maybe much more than that. But that wasn't sufficient for what I needed to do. I came with $5,000, I believe, and my school fees was in the thousands of dollars. So you can imagine the disparity or the imbalance or the gap there was. So just to share a bit of my story. So I worked in the bank after graduating. After my undergrad, I worked for a couple of years, about 7 years. I worked about 7 years. I worked in a bank and I made good money, and I always had a dream at a very young age to, at some point, do my master's, travel abroad, get a master's or a doctorate or something. However, I didn't, it was a plan, but I always just winged it. I just felt, when the time comes, things will happen, things will fall in place, and I'll, figure it out. So yeah, like I said, I worked for a couple of years. I, rose through the ranks in the banking industry. I made money, but I didn't have financial literacy. It's funny and uncanny to think about it this way, because even though I worked in the bank, I still wasn't financially very literate in terms of, investment, saving money and all that. I made some investments. I wouldn't say, because as a banker then, there were lots of opportunities to invest in stock, invest in, maybe properties and all that, which I did, but not as much, not so much. And I made those investments without a clear understanding of why I was doing it. It was just, everyone is doing it, let me go do it as well. So yeah, I wasn't conservative in my spending. I wasn't smart financially. I didn't make good financial decisions. And so even though I earned good money, I lived paycheck to paycheck. My salary comes, I spend it all, wait for the next one. And it just kept on going that way, despite the fact that I had this dream of traveling abroad. I'm not from a very rich family, so I knew that whatever I needed to do, to send myself to school, it had to come from me. Part of the reason, and I wasn't very ostentatious in my spending. I wasn't a very flashy person, not like I bought designer bags or suits and all that. None of that. However, my money went to other things, a lot of it went to, I was of the crop of Christians who believed, that giving was a way to satiate or please God. You just had to give so much so that you had nothing left of yourself. It almost felt like subconsciously in my mind that when I give it all out, it will come back to me. So I'm not even talking about just paying my tithe. I was also talking about the church I belonged to at that time also had a lot of financial responsibilities, such that there was always something you had to give for. There was always, someone's birthday. There was always something to contribute for. So, you finish one contribution, there's another one waiting. You finish another one, there's another one waiting. It was just like an endless cycle. It just kept going every month on month, week on week. Sometimes I even had to borrow, to give, sow those, those Christians sow those powerful seeds, expecting that earth-shaking miracle to happen. I still believe in giving, because giving is definitely scriptural and biblical. But right now when I give, I don't give from the mindset of, like you trade and barter. trying to, give to God. God, look, I've given to you, okay, give me back. No, that's not my mindset now. But then it was. So I did a lot of things without understanding. And sometimes I'm like, God, I'm mad that you didn't set me right when I was doing those things, because he didn't ask me to, but I just felt, I had to finagle my way into his affection, into his, acceptance, forgetting what the Bible talks about grace. We've been saved by grace, nothing else. Jesus plus nothing. We don't work out our salvation by giving. You can't work yourself into salvation or into God's blessings or into God's favor. Those things happen because God loves us. He loves us, so it's good to give. So I'm glad I made all of those, financial commitments, giving, but I feel like I did it with the wrong motive. And yeah, I still beat myself up sometimes, especially when I had to borrow to make those commitments, to give, to make those givings. It's not scriptural. If you're doing it, it's not anywhere in the Bible. So that aside from that, I think that most of my money, chunk of my money actually went to that, went to, giving, charity, and all that. I mean, the Bible says it's more blessed to give than to receive. So I'm not even mad about it. But I'm just trying to highlight the importance of, having, working towards your purpose, your plan. If there's a dream in your heart, don't wing it. Don't leave things to chance. Be conscious. Make conscious efforts or conscious decisions. Be intentional about, planning, making certain things aside. Whether it's a house you want to build, whether it's a home you want to buy, whatever. Just set money aside and not hope things will just fall in place. And the other thing is family as well. I mean, in the culture where I grew up in Nigeria, you don't live for yourself, you don't exist for yourself, you don't make money for yourself. As you're making the money, you have family, you have loved ones, you give to, I have a huge family, extended family, nieces, nephews, everything, so there's always, auntie, come and give us this, auntie, do this, auntie, that. And honestly, it's okay, no issues, because as a kid, when I was a kid, I also remember when we, went home for Christmas, sometimes you have those uncles and aunts, very rich uncles and aunts, when they come to the house, we'll all be trailing after them, asking them for Christmas money, to give us money. So I was like, yeah, it's my turn now. But yeah, that also, it's not a problem. But again, where the problem is where you don't, where you give everything you have, where you're dry to your bones, nothing else, nothing left over for yourself, So that was it. So I would say throughout my 7 years, I never saved. I didn't have, of course I had savings accounts, but the savings account was just, it was always, one day I'll get to it, but I never got to it. And so that was it. So 2011 rolls around and I realized, I've been in this career for so long, 7 years. It's really not what I want to do. I want to do something different. My background, my undergraduate was actually in engineering. I was like, I want to go back to engineering. I want to go do that master's. Started applying for schools, got admission. Got some scholarship, thank God. Wasn't full scholarship, 40% scholarship. So yeah, I was like, yay, I got it finally, And so I resigned. And then, making plans to come here, I honestly wasn't financially equipped or ready to come here because I had no savings at all. The only money I had was the money, because those days in the bank when you're leaving, they give you like severance pay. So I had my severance pay. That was all I had. And even with the severance pay, I still had to give out, some from it. So I had just, like I said, $5,000. That was all I had. And my school fees was going to be in the thousands of dollars. Even despite the 40% scholarship, I still had a lot to pay out of pocket. And it was a tug of, I was just tired of my job. I was just tired of everything around me. I was like, no, I needed to go. I wish I would have waited back a little bit. I wish I would have been patient and not, made the move to come immediately. And I'll tell you why. So I got the admission, got everything. I was like, I need to go. And then I left, came with my $5,000. I believe I had part of the money. I had $2,000 maybe, and I had someone else to wire me the remaining $3,000 when I got to the US. First semester or quarter, my school used quarter system. First quarter was good. I had my school fees. I had at least a little change for my rent and feeding. So no issues. I was fine. But as second quarter, second term rolled around, oh my God, it was like the rubber really hit the road, because I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I had no money. How do I pay my fees? How do I pay? And then I started looking for jobs. It was so hard to get on-campus job. I believe I finally got a job in the second term, second semester. So it was like, oh my God, how do I do this? I had like 2 or 3 jobs on campus. Thank God, those jobs, some of them I work night shifts. I work, because you can only work 20 hours. So days I didn't have, lectures, I worked through the night. And then if I had my second job might be in the morning, I'll go from nights to day. So it was a lot of stress. This is someone coming from working a comfortable 9 to 5 job as a banker in Nigeria to not having any money. Like, how you wake up and like, God, what will I eat this morning? I don't have food. I don't have, my rent. Okay, thankfully, I think my rent was always, settled, because rent was cheaper then. It was like, I remember I paid $375 all through school. The states where I lived in was quite cheap. So that's another thing for international students. Look for a school in a state that is cheap. Don't go to them California, them New York, Maryland. All of those places are expensive, except you have full funding. If you have full funding, way to go. But if not, look for, schools in cheaper states, where cost of living is lower, your rents will probably be lower as well. So that was it. So second term was where the rubber hit the road. Oh my God, I was just always worried. I was in this heightened state of anxiety. Nothing, even my classes, my lectures, I couldn't focus, I couldn't concentrate. The on-campus job I was doing, like I said, the 20-hour, it was minimum wage, $7.50, so it could only take care of my rent, honestly, and my feeding. But my school fees, like I said, in the thousands. It was a struggle. And I had heard the story of a Nigerian lady who came a couple of years before me, who, couldn't make her school fees payment, couldn't, pay her fees and then on time. And then her school reported her to CVs, and CVs, reported her to DHS, and they had to deport her. Like, whenever I thought about that lady's story, like, I freaked out. I was like, oh my God. I was just so afraid that I wouldn't be able to make my school fees, because the second time I hadn't paid, we're going way deep into the semester, almost, I hadn't paid yet because I didn't have money for that. So it was a lot of, the jobs I did like a bus, what in Nigeria we call it bus conductor kind of job. But it wasn't bus conductor, it was more of like school buses, right? So they need someone to stay in the bus, and, let the kids, help them cross the streets, or just make sure they are well behaved in the bus. And it wasn't considered an outside job. It was still an on-campus job, because my school organized some kind of after-school program for elementary kids. So that kind of job. So I did that. One time I was emailing professors if they needed someone to help them cut their grasses. I was cutting, that. I was, working in the residence hall as a desk staff. Like, it was a humbling time for me, because, like I said, coming from a really good job, honestly, good position back home in Nigeria, it was like, oh my God, like waking up and not knowing where your next meal coming. It was good. I mean, it wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad, because it was just me. I'm single, right? Imagine if I had like other like real responsibility, like a kid or, family, that would have been. But yeah, and I had no reserves anywhere, no savings, no one I could easily, even though at the time my family, kind of came through for me, but it wasn't like a constant stream. So I went through, I think one of the worst things I went through was the mental torture. It was a mental struggle. I didn't enjoy my time. Honestly, I didn't enjoy my grad school experience. I would say some of the saddest moments I've had in my life was like when I came here for school. It was so sad and depressing. It was hard enough that it's a different country, I didn't know anyone. And then adding that layer of financial struggle made it, even more, made it worse. So yeah, I met a couple of people. Like, I couldn't even avail myself friendship or relationship, because I was just always in my head thinking, oh my God, I can make my payments. And I wish I trusted in God more. I lived so much in anxiety and worry and stress, and it affected my academics as well. Honestly, I feel like I went through school, but sometimes I'm like, how did I even pass my classes? How did I even, make those grades? Because I just couldn't focus. It was as if my logic, the logical part of my brain, I don't know if is it the prefrontal cortex or the amygdala, was just cut off. It was just always, I was just worried. I was just in this heightened state of, I'm sure the cortisol level in my body was just on overdrive and all that. So yeah, I struggled relationship wise, friendship wise. I remember there was this Nigerian girl too, who had been there before I came, and she was very sociable, had a huge social network, and would once in a while invite me for parties or things to meet her friends. But I was just always, oh my God, like all these rich kids, you guys don't even know what I'm going through, So I ate a lot of noodles, ramen noodles. It was like breakfast, lunch, dinner. A lot of times, sometimes, had no food. Could barely take care of myself. But anyway, I've shared a lot of the wrong thing. But what happened eventually was I eventually got a fellowship, during that period. Oh my God, there was one, in fact, sometimes struggles, draw you closer to God. I was like, oh my God, you have to do this for me. I remember that one semester where it was almost nearing the time, like the cutoff, where if I didn't make my payments, I probably would be asked to leave. I took out time, did 3 days prayer and fasting. Oh my God. Like on the third day, like prayer works, God works. God, in fact, God has shown me himself so much through my journey in this country, especially that grad school period, honestly, because I prayed, fasted, but I was like, God, you're my last boss. So I don't even know what else to do, because before now I'd been going from one professor to another, one, person to another. In fact, another thing was I was looking for someone to help me co-sign a loan, because as an international student, you don't qualify for federal loans. So you had to go with, private student loans, Salime loans, and they wouldn't give it to you unless you had a co-signer. I tried looking for people to co-sign for me. One guy one time was asking me to come and see him in Florida or something. Like, it was just a mess. Like, oh my God, no one could co-sign. And I don't blame them. I don't fault them for it, because honestly, I'm glad I didn't get those loans. Otherwise, I would have been paying back loans now. It was tough though. And then when I go to my school, like the graduate school, asking them, oh, is there assistantship available for me? They'll keep asking me from one, oh, go ask that professor, go ask that professor. It was just like, and God, I was just miserable. I didn't enjoy myself. And then, okay, so let me go back to this fast. So after that 3 days fast, because I was like, God, hands off, please just help me do what you would do. And then on the third day, on the day of I was ending the fast, some guy just called me. He's also an African student, and we weren't that close, but we went to the same church, the same fellowship. So I was like, oh, that he was just thinking, his wife, had asked about me, and he just decided to call some, check up on me. I was like, oh, I'm doing good, and I now told him, I was like, that my fees I haven't paid, and he was like, oh, really? Oh, wow. So sorry to say that. Why didn't you say it earlier? In church, we have this international students purse, this savings or purse where international students could pull from, that I could, take advantage of that. I was like, oh, really? I didn't know. So he was like, yeah, he gave me the phone number of the person, the coordinator of those funds, and, set up a meeting to meet with him. And I met with him, and that was how the money came. I was like, oh my God, like it was like a miracle, and so many other miracles like that. God showed up for me, from eventually getting a fellowship, where the fellowship then took care, because the fellowship took care of the rest of my program. And yeah, it was awesome. And I feel like I'm still recovering from the trauma or the stress that period put on me mentally and emotionally. I'm still recovering from it, and a lot of times I beat myself up a bit as well when I was going through that. Beat myself up in not being prepared, like not coming prepared, not coming financially, because I saw other grad students. I mean, students who had also worked when they were back in Nigeria, and they came prepared, and I was like, why did I do this to myself? Why? I was really mad at myself for a very, very long time, because it's like I didn't need to go through the stress I went through. If only I had been smart, if only I had made plans, if only I had, saved, if only I had come ready A lot of times as Christians, we love to leave things to chance. So we're like, oh, God will do it. God will do it. Let's walk by faith. Yes, it's good to walk by faith. But when God gives you an opportunity to make things happen for yourself, don't misuse it. In my case, I had a job. I always knew that I wanted to try, go for my master's, right? The wise thing to have done was to start making steps, have savings, fund, master's funds or whatever funds, not touch it, no matter what, like just set it aside and not just live in this la la land thinking that, oh, things will happen by themselves, things will work themselves out. It's either you put, at the end of the day, it's either you put the stress on yourself or you put it on someone else. Because again, assuming I had someone, maybe a family member or someone that was helping me, then I'll put that whole stress of my own wahala on them when they didn't deserve it, when it was my fault that I didn't make adequate plans. So I feel like it's different if you don't have, maybe, if it's different if, for instance, I didn't have that job, because God provides for us. God opens doors for us, in some way, so that we can, to equip us for, what He has for us in the future. It's different if I didn't have that job and there was no way to, make money or save money. That's totally different. If I went through all the stress I went through, I'll be like, okay, but what are the options? I mean, it's still a win-win for me to still go ahead and do my master's and, still struggle in America, right? But in this case, I had a job, I had opportunity, to save, to put things in order. I didn't, and I came, hoping that things will work out. They did work out eventually. However, I went through the stress. I went through the ringer. And like I said, I'm still recovering from it, honestly. And a lot of things happened during my graduate school program that I feel like wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in the situation I was in, if I wasn't in the financial mess I was in. Maybe I'll share that one as a different story. But yeah, it's stressful. I mean, I can look back to that and say, wow, God took, God helped me, eventually finished my did my master's, did my doctorate, graduated, got a good job, and now like it's all in the past. But again, it's all in the past. But sometimes I'm like, oh, I still beat myself up. Sometimes beat myself up for making that unwise decision. But yeah, I know a lot of young people want to travel, to go to school. In foreign countries, abroad. It's a good dream to have. But what I would just say is, if God has provided a way for you, like an income, a source of financial ability right now, whatever it is you're doing, it doesn't matter how much you're earning, just put money aside, work towards your dream, save for your dream. Don't depend on someone else. Don't hope that, okay, maybe this auntie or this uncle, or maybe, just God provided for a reason. So take advantage of it. Don't be like me. Don't go through the stress. America can be sweet, especially since I remember a couple of my fellow Nigerian students who came here for masters as well. I mean, some of them came from rich homes. Their parents were sponsoring them. A lot of them were sponsoring themselves. They had money now. They lived in nice places. Some of them bought cars. Some of them got funding as well. So all of those things. So my whole game of saying this is just, make sure you're building towards the future you want, the dreams you want. Don't leave things to chance. Be financially, be financially smart, be financially savvy, save. If you're a Christian, as a Christian, pay your tithe. After paying your tithe, tithe is not non-negotiable. As it's coming, you're paying it. In the same way, it's non-negotiable. Your savings towards your dream or whatever it is you want to do in the future should also be non-negotiable. Put that one aside, and then the remaining you can, give, help others and, whatever other things you want to do. So yeah, that's just my advice. I hope I didn't ramble on for too much, but I just wanted to share it because it was really heavy in my heart. We all have different journeys, I think, in this country, and I hope it works out well for you. But all I want to say is financial literacy, financial savviness, financial smartness is very important. Of course, I learned it the hard way, but I've learned it now. For me, I'm like, okay, we're not going to make this same mistake. We're not going to play like this, right? So as you're paying salary, I just have different accounts. Okay, this one goes there, this one goes there. That's it. So yeah, I hope this video kind of helped you, wherever you are. I hope you take a thing or two from it. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, your future dreams, goals. I hope everything works out well for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you come back next time for more episodes. Bye bye.